Hello, I'm Father Novak, and in this video I'm going to speak to you about the placement of the tabernacle. When this church was built in 1982, the tabernacle was not designed to be in the sanctuary. The sanctuary is this space, this elevated space in our church where the altar and the ambo and where the priests sit for Mass. But when this church was constructed, there was no tabernacle in the sanctuary where it had been for hundreds of years. Because at that time in architecture, in church architecture, there was this tendency to build churches with a chapel attached to the church where the Blessed Sacrament would be. And that is the case with this church. When it was built, the tabernacle was not in the sanctuary, but in a chapel off to the side. As part of a compromise, the architects at that time had the tabernacle sitting in a window so that for 3/4 of the church, they could actually see the tabernacle from the church itself, except for those who were sitting in this section over here by the baptistry because he was actually behind them. But anyway, this was a trend. And then I have to ask myself, we wonder why there are many Catholics today who grew up during that time that do not believe in the real presence. When you take Jesus out of the church and put him in a separate space, it really says a lot about what we believe. When we gather as his people, we are the body of Christ, but he is always what unites us. He and his real presence in the Eucharist is why we're here. To celebrate the Mass is a participation in the one perfect sacrifice of Jesus Christ. He is the one who gathers us. He offers his body to us, and to put him in a space other than where we are is just not theologically correct. So the church lived through that phase, and now there is a trend to return tabernacles to the sanctuary. Churches that were built during that time with separate chapels are now returning the Blessed Sacrament to the church, which is exactly what we did a number of years ago. A small tabernacle was put in the sanctuary around 2020. And then more recently, since I arrived in summer of 2023, a beautiful tabernacle that had already been purchased and been restored, I brought out and put here in the sanctuary where it is today. The problem is that we are not permitted to have two tabernacles in the same space. Even though the tabernacle in the window is in a separate chapel per se, the fact that it can be seen very clearly from the window along with a tabernacle here in the sanctuary creates confusion. Parishioners don't know which one to genuflect to. Do I genuflect to this one or both? And the church in the Roman Missal is very clear in the instruction that a church should only have one tabernacle. And the place for the tabernacle, as we now know, is in the sanctuary. So we have this beautiful tabernacle that is in our sanctuary and is on a step, so it is elevated and can be seen by everyone who is gathered in the church. But more importantly, that he is seen in the tabernacle is that he is truly at the center of our worship space, of our parish, and really the center of our lives. So again, the placement of the tabernacle in the center of the sanctuary, which is the holiest of holiest places within this church, really reflects our belief that Jesus Christ is the center of our lives. Thank you very much.